Hello. In today's video, we will be discussing joints. We will talk about what joints are, how they work, and the functions that they perform for the body. So far, we have discussed both the skeletal system and the muscular system and how they work together to allow the body to move. If we think about the wide range of motion that the human body can perform, there's one missing piece that we need to understand in order to really understand how those two systems work together to allow the body this wide range of motion. So in order to do that, stand up, and we're going to get moving this morning. So give yourself a little bit of space, and we're going to move it. So first thing I want you to do is hold your arms up over the top of your head and bring them down to your side. And start to do some movements. Circle, circle to the front. Wider, wider, and smaller. And now we're going to reverse it. Go to the back. Spread them out. Wider, wider, and smaller. Now we're going to move to the neck. So first you're going to hang your neck down. We're just going to roll all the way back to the side, down, and over. Get to the middle again and reverse it. Roll. Roll it. All right. Bring it back to the front. Now we're going to do some head turns. You're going to just only moving your neck. Turn your head all the way to one side, back to the middle, and all the way to the other side. One more time, moving nothing but your neck. All the way to one side and back. All right, now we are going to stand up. Give yourself some space. Okay, now hold your hands out in front of you, bending just your knees all the way down to the ground, and then come back up with a jump. Hands up, all the way down, up with a jump. And finally, we're going to take our wrists, hold them up, and we're going to rotate. Roll them, roll them. One direction, and switch it. Switch it. Come back. Now everything. Now you have just seen and experienced the wide range of motion that your body is capable of. Today, we're going to talk about what made that possible. So every motion that you just performed in our little exercise involved a joint. So first, let's talk about what joints are. Joints are the places in the human body where two or more bones come together. There are two categories of bones in the body. The first is called immovable joints. Immovable just means not movable, are bones that cannot bend. Therefore, they are not involved in movement. The second type of joint, and the type that we are going to focus on today, are movable joints. These are the joints that can bend and move. And hint, hint, we're involved in all of those motions that we just did. These joints are very important for the body's range of motion. So an example of an immovable joint is the joints in the skull. So the skulls and the bone actually come together at points that are joints. However, they do not move or they cannot bend. Therefore, they are called immovable joints. Movable joints, for example, the knee joint, are again those joints that can bend and move and are very important in motion. So now we'll talk about our movable joints and 4 different types of movable joints that are found in the body. The first is called a pivot joint. In a pivot joint, there's one bone that rotates or turns around another bone. An example of a pivot joint is those upper vertebrae bones in your neck that allow you to move your head from one side to another. In that joint, one bone is rotating or pivoting around another. Second type of joint is called a ball and socket joint. In a ball and socket joint, there's the round end of one bone that fits into a socket and which allows that bone to circle or rotate around it. An example of that is your shoulder. So when we held our hands out this way, and rotated or circled. That was an example of a ball and socket joint. Another type of joint is a hinge joint. So just like a door hinge, a hinge joint swings back and forth. An example of a hinge joint is your elbow. So if you think about how your elbow is able to move, your elbow can swing open and closed, back and forth, just like a door. That is an example of a hinge joint. Finally, we have gliding plane joint. A gliding plane joint involves two bones that slide or glide past each other. Many of the bones inside of your hands and your feet are gliding plane joints. Now, in any of these movable joints, there are several components that come together to allow the joint to work. We, of course, have the bones that come together in the joint, as well as the muscles that are connected to them. Then we have our ligaments. As we recall from our last lesson, ligaments are the tissues that hold our bones together. In the joint, this is of course important because we have the two bones coming together that of course need to be held together. This is the job of the ligament. Then we also have a tissue type called cartilage. Cartilage is a somewhat bendable tissue that covers the bones in the joint, which keeps them from sliding or grinding on each other. Finally, we have tendons. Tendons are those tissues that connect our muscles to our bones. So in a joint, the tendons connect the muscles to the bones so that the bones can be pulled by the muscles, allowing the joint to move.